Welcome to the deep dive. So 2025, the fashion world feels like it's navigating some pretty choppy waters, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. You've got global trade turmoil, supply chains feeling, well, unpredictable, and consumers definitely seem to be hesitating more, thinking harder about purchases.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today, right? Some recent research looking at this whole complex picture.
That's the plan. And it's interesting because, yes, there are absolutely risks, big challenges for the industry, but, the research also points to some pretty fascinating opportunities for those ready to adapt anyway.
Okay, let's get into it. The research focuses on three big areas: Europe, the US, and China. What's the sort of high-level outlook there?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, really. Europe looks like pretty sluggish growth ahead, modest maybe.
Right.
But the really striking thing, I think, is China. Consumer confidence there is reported as exceptionally low right now.
Wow, exceptionally low. That must have big knock-on effects, considering how crucial that market has been.
Exactly. It sends ripples across the whole industry.
So, okay, these key markets aren't exactly firing on all cylinders. But the research points to this shift in why people are buying, doesn't it? It's not just about the lowest price tag anymore.
Not at all. The word is value, but it's a much broader idea now than just, cheap. Consumers are really looking hard at the perceived worth,
Perceived worth.
meaning
Okay.
things like quality, how long something might last, even the kind of social statement it makes. And this is driving some really noticeable trends.
Like the dupe thing. I've been hearing about this. Tell us about dupe. They sound like fakes, but different.
Yeah, it's more nuanced than that. A dupe in this context isn't just a cheap copy. We're often talking about extremely well-made lookalikes of luxury items.
Okay.
But the real story is the mindset shift. Owning a dupe, wearing it, it's gone from something maybe a bit shameful to, for many people, a point of actual pride.
Pride. How so?
Like, it signals you're a smart shopper, you're
Yeah.
savvy, you found great style without the huge luxury markup. Social media is a big part of this, Influencers talking openly, even celebrating finding good dupes.
Yeah. That's a fundamental change in thinking about status, isn't it? And it feels linked to the whole pre-loved market, too, which is just huge now.
Precisely. That boom in resale, buying pre-loved, it's massive. And the reasons are layered. Sure, cost savings can be part of it, but it's also about finding unique things, maybe items that aren't made anymore. Especially in luxury, sometimes a particular bag or style gets so popular it feels almost generic. Pre-loved offers a way around that, individuality.
And I guess the fact that a lot of classic luxury stuff is built to last helps, like those iconic bags or jewelry.
Undeniably, that perception of durability, especially for classic leather goods and jewelry brands,
Yeah.
it definitely props up their resale value. Sometimes they even go up in value. Apparel and shoes are a bit different, more tied to trends, but still a big market.
Okay, so consumers are thinking value, they're open to dupes, they're buying pre-loved. How does the digital world fit into all this? It must be shaping everything.
Oh, massively. Discovery. That's the key word for 2025 consumer behavior. The research suggests something like, 70% of transactions, they're influenced digitally at some point in the journey.
70%. Wow.
And it's getting much more sophisticated. We're seeing this explosion of AI-powered tools. They're not just basic search anymore. They offer really precise, personalized recommendations.
How precise are we talking?
Well, they're crunching huge amounts of data, your past buys, what you browse, social media likes, even analyzing images of styles you seem to prefer. It goes way beyond just keywords.
So the tech is getting much better at figuring out me, my specific taste, not just people like me.
Exactly that. Companies using these advanced analytics can predict what you might want next with, frankly, scary accuracy sometimes. They tailor the whole online experience. What you see on a website might be totally different to what I see.
That level of personalization must be a huge edge, especially when growth is slow overall.
It really is. It's becoming a key way to compete.
Okay, this is where I think it gets really interesting. While those traditional big markets, Europe, US, China, are facing headwinds,
Yeah.
the research flags up new growth spots. In Asia, specifically.
Yes, and this is super important. For ages, the industry leaned so heavily on the Chinese consumer, but now India is just emerging incredibly rapidly.
India. Tell me more.
It's on track to be the world's third largest consumer market by, 2027? The middle class there is huge, potentially as big as the US and Europe's combined.
Yeah,
And it's a young population. Brands are scrambling to figure out how to connect there.
that's a massive shift, a huge potential market. And it's not just India and Asia, is it?
No, definitely not. The Middle East is also increasingly important. Think UAE, Saudi Arabia, not just for the super high-end luxury anymore, but broader fashion too.
Right.
And we're also seeing cities like Jakarta, Bangkok, these Southeast Asian capitals becoming real fashion hubs in their own right, worth
Yeah.
watching.
Okay. Fascinating. Now, let's pivot a bit. There's another group the research highlights, one that maybe fashion hasn't always put front and center. The silver spenders.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, isn't it? So much marketing focuses on Gen Z or millennials, but globally, the fastest growing population segment is actually people aged 50 and over.
Really? Faster than younger groups.
Yep. And they already account for a huge chunk of spending, maybe around 38% currently. And the projections, they suggest this group will drive something like half of all future growth in consumer spending.
Half. Wow. So brands need to pay attention.
They absolutely do. It's not just an opportunity, it's becoming a necessity.
Mm.
Developing strategies, products, marketing that genuinely speaks to older consumers, their needs, their style, it's critical.
Makes total sense. Often more disposable income, maybe more defined sense of personal style too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears again to a sector that sounds like it's really being shaken up. Sporting goods.
Oh, big time. There's been a really dramatic shift in where the profits are coming from in sportswear. Well, if you look back just a few years, say 2020, the incumbents, the huge brands like Nike, Adidas, the ones with over $5 billion in sales, they were capturing most of the economic profit. Basically, they were making almost all the money in the sector.
Okay, the usual suspects. But that's changed.
Changed massively. Fast forward to 2024, and it's the challenger brands, companies like Hoka, On Running, Vuori. They are now generating around 60% of the total economic profit.
60%. That's incredible. How did that happen so fast?
It seems to be down to two main things. Genuine product innovation.
Like new tech, new materials.
Exactly. Hoka with their super cushioned soles, On with their sort of cloud technology, Vuori focusing on that intersection of performance and comfort, real noticeable product differences.
Okay, innovation. And the second thing.
Really smart, effective marketing, building loyal communities around the brands, often less about huge celebrity endorsements, more about authentic stories, connecting directly with runners, with yogis, whatever their niche is, using social media very effectively.
And technology must play a role here too, especially AI. We touched on it earlier.
Definitely. That direct-to-consumer connection thrives on social media, and it's powered by clever data analytics understanding those communities. And as we said, product innovation is crucial, especially in sports where performance matters.
Right.
But AI's impact goes further. For consumers, it means better search, finding exactly the right shoe or apparel, more personalization online.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even showing up in physical stores now, equipping the sales staff with tablets or tools that have AI assistants, giving them real-time info on stock, customer history, suggesting complementary products.
So it helps online and helps the person helping you in the store.
Precisely, improving both sides of the experience. But maybe one of the biggest, almost revolutionary uses of AI in fashion is actually in the design process itself.
How does that work? AI designing clothes?
Sort of.
Yeah.
AI algorithms can generate tons of design variations, patterns, colorways based on trends, data, brand DNA. It allows designers to explore way more options much faster. And crucially, they can test these concepts virtually.
Ah, so fewer physical samples needed.
Exactly. Reducing the huge investment in making samples that might just end up being duds. The research estimates that boosting creativity and cutting waste in design could account for, up to 25% of AI's total value impact in fashion.
25%, just from the design side. That's huge. Efficiency, sustainability,
Yeah,
game changer.
it really is.
Okay, so AI is transforming design and the online experience.
Yeah.
What about actual shops? Brick and mortar stores, do they still have a place in this digital world?
It's interesting. Foot traffic, people actually going into stores, it does vary. Depends on the type of shop, the region. But the research is pretty clear. Physical stores are still a really important way for brands to stand out, to create an experience.
Experience, okay.
And there's data showing a big chunk of consumers say they're likely to spend more if they have a good, positive, helpful interaction in a store.
That human touch still counts for a lot then.
It really does. But the role of the store is definitely changing. Often you might discover a product online first, do your research there. Then the store becomes less about just holding lots of inventory and more about immersing you in the brand, feeling the fabric, seeing the quality, getting that vibe, more experiential.
So maybe fewer new stores opening, but more focus on making the existing ones better.
That seems to be the trend, yeah.
Hmm.
Deceleration at openings, but investment in enhancing the experience in the stores they have, making them destinations.
It all comes back to understanding the consumer, doesn't it?
Hmm.
What they want, how they shop. But the research suggests brands
Hmm.
maybe don't understand this as well as they think.
It's actually quite surprising. The data seems to show that many fashion brands, even big ones, lack a really deep, granular understanding of why their customers buy things and how that's changing.
We get bombarded with targeted ads. They seem to know what we look at online.
Exactly. The ad targeting is sophisticated, tracking online clicks and behavior, but understanding the underlying motivations, the shifts in attitude, the context, that seems less developed.
Hmm.
And compared to other industries, like, say, consumer packaged goods, fashion seems to underinvest in a couple of key areas. Really training and empowering frontline store staff, and also in those deep dive analytics and consumer insight teams.
That feels like a missed opportunity. A fundamental gap, almost.
It really does. A chance to connect better, serve better, and ultimately sell better.
Okay, let's zoom out again. The wider world feels, well, pretty turbulent. Geopolitics, trade issues. How does the fashion industry navigate all that uncertainty?
That's a huge question right now. The key takeaway is that geopolitics isn't just some external risk anymore. It has to be baked into core strategy.
How so?
Well, consumer attitudes, regulations, trade rules, they can diverge massively between regions now. You can't just have one global plan. And because things are so uncertain, scenario planning becomes crucial.
Thinking through different what-ifs.
Exactly. What if this trade route gets disrupted? What if tariffs change here? What if consumer sentiment shifts dramatically there? You need contingency plans. Adaptability is absolutely key. You can't just set a 5-year plan and stick to it rigidly anymore. Things change too fast.
Adaptability.
Yeah.
That seems to be the watchword.
Mm.
And that must apply doubly to supply chains, right, given all the disruptions we've seen.
Oh, absolutely. Constantly reviewing and tweaking where you source from is vital. It's not just about finding the cheapest place anymore.
What else comes into play?
You need to look at supplier capabilities, their reliability, the risk of disruption, whether it's political, economic, or increasingly climate related.
Climate change impacting suppliers.
Massively. Extreme weather, water scarcity, these are already hitting manufacturing hubs in key supplier countries. It's a major disruptive force that needs factoring in.
So how do brands manage this complexity?
Better analytics are part of it. Really understanding the detailed cost breakdown, figuring out that trade-off between cost, quality, and resilience. And rethinking relationships with manufacturers, moving away from purely transactional deals towards more long-term strategic partnerships,
Right.
collaborating on efficiency, on resilience planning. AI and analytics can help manage these more complex relationships too.
Sounds like it needs a joined-up approach.
Ideally, yes. Maybe even more industry collaboration, brands, suppliers, regulators working together could make a real difference in building that resilience.
Inevitably, this brings us to sustainability. It's been a huge focus for fashion for years. Is it still a top priority with all these economic pressures?
The research says yes, it has to be. Sustainability is basically non-negotiable now, despite the tough climate.
Why so non-negotiable?
Well, firstly, the industry's environmental footprint is just huge. Its contribution to greenhouse gas emissions is significant. You can't ignore that.
Right.
And secondly, as we just touched on, climate change poses direct business risks. Those disruptions in supplier countries due to extreme weather, they can cause massive economic losses, job losses.
Right.
So building resilience is a sustainability issue, and it's an urgent business need.
But it's hard, isn't it? Making supply chains sustainable when they're so complex and global.
Incredibly hard. You've got economic challenges, operational complexity, and often these really fragmented supply chains with thousands of small and medium-sized factories. It's tough to implement changes consistently.
And what about the consumer side? Do people really pay more for sustainable fashion?
That's the perennial challenge. There's often a gap between what consumers say they want, yes, sustainability,
Yeah.
and their actual willingness to pay a premium for it, especially when money's tight.
So brands are caught in the middle.
Pretty much. They're trying to pursue this kind of dual mission, as the research calls it, pushing forward on sustainability commitments, because they have to, while also keeping a very close eye on profitability. It's a difficult balancing act.
So what are the practical steps forward? How do they manage that dual mission?
Sharing best practices seems key, especially around things like helping suppliers decarbonize. That's a huge task. Finding innovative ways to finance those changes. And data, getting much more detailed data right across the value chain, understanding the impact at every stage. Partnering with traceability companies can help here, making sure the data is reliable. That allows for setting smarter strategies and focusing efforts where they'll make the biggest difference.
It really sounds like a period of profound change for fashion. Challenging, yes, but also transformative.
I think that's exactly right. We've
Ah,
talked about so much shifting consumer values, dupes, pre-loved, the power of AI, new growth markets, the need for resilience, sustainability. It's all interconnected.
a dynamic landscape, as you said.
Yeah.
It demands agility, really knowing your customer, embracing innovation.
Yeah, not just to survive the current bumps, but actually to seize the opportunities that are emerging from all this flux.
Absolutely. Okay, to wrap up, here's something to chew on. We talked about consumers wanting both value and uniqueness. So thinking about these incredible advances in AI for personalized design and potentially production, too. How might that reshape fashion? Could we see a future where the lines between mass market and totally bespoke start to blur, thanks to tech operating at scale? Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.